Hi, and welcome to Dystrophy Diaries. So this is going to be a little bit of a different one, like previous episodes. So this is my first solo episode. The reason why I wanted to do this episode is because I think over the last few podcasts that I've done, I've talked a little bit about my nutrition journey and my issues with swallowing and stomach issues, and I've had quite a lot of people message me and ask me questions and want to know a bit more about it. So I thought, why not do a bit of a story time video where I talk all about my journey with nutrition and TPN, and at the end of this I will add a little tutorial video of how I do my TPN. And yeah, I really hope you enjoy it, and let's get started. So, as you know, I've got limb-girdle muscular dystrophy type 1B, and generally speaking, it varies a bit with every person. Not a lot of people have issues with the stomach, but for those of us that do, I have dysmotility. And dysmotility is where the muscles in your gut, they don't really work in sync together, so they go into spasms, they cramp a lot, and parts of it can be overactive and other parts can be underactive. And it also means that I don't absorb nutrients properly. So when I do eat food, I don't really get the goodness or the calories from it. And I also struggle with swallowing. But I'll start from the beginning, and it's probably a lot easier to follow that way. I started to struggle eating when I was about probably 10 years old, was when my dysmotility first started. And it started with me feeling full quite quickly after eating, and I'd get a lot of tummy pain when I'd eat, and I'd feel a bit sick after I eat food, but it was still quite manageable at this stage, and my weight was relatively stable, so they weren't too concerned about it. But a couple of years down the line, and I started to really struggle to sustain my weight, and I started losing weight really quickly. And by this point, I was really struggling to eat anything. I'd have like little mouthfuls of stuff, but I'd get so much stomach pain, and food just wasn't really very enjoyable for me. And so unfortunately, I quite quickly became malnourished and dehydrated. And anyone who has ever been malnourished will know how awful you feel, because your body is so starved and struggling to function. I remember I used to get these awful waves of refeeding syndrome when I would try and eat anything, and oh god, it was, yeah, it was not fun. Um, and unfortunately, it was established at this point that I just couldn't sustain myself with just eating. They tried to fit an NG tube, and that is a tube that goes up your nose, down your back of your throat, and into your stomach, and they put nutrition drinks through that way. But I pulled it out. I just could not. Oh no, it wasn't for me. Yeah, no. So as a bargaining with my consultant, he said I had to drink 6 of those Ensure milkshake drink things over the course of about 3 or 4 days. It was a weekend at the time, in order to stabilise me so that I could then have surgery to fit a peg. So for that entire weekend, I just sat with a straw in my mouth and just drank one after the other. So much so that by the Sunday, my entire lips were just covered in mouth ulcers. But I did it and started to feel maybe a little bit better. And they fitted a peg for me. I really struggled for years on the peg feeds. I've met a lot of people that have them that tolerate them relatively well, but for me, I don't know what it was about them, because we tried every single one, even the dairy-free ones, but they just made me so ill. Like, oh, it was debilitating, which really kind of defeated the object of trying to give me nutrients. But that was probably over the course of about 4-5 years by that point, like just trialing different feeds, different regimes. And it was during this period that I lost my swallow. And when I say lost my swallow, I literally woke up one day and couldn't swallow a thing. It happened overnight, which was very daunting, and I think a bit, I don't know, I was almost in a bit of denial, to be honest, because I didn't think anything like that could happen so quickly. But it did, and you could see on the scan, we have to drink some dye and they watch where it goes. You could see that it would just kind of get stuck, and then it would go a little bit, get stuck in my chest, go a little bit more, and so at the time, I mean, I didn't have a great relationship with food at that point because it was making me quite unwell, but I still wanted to try and eat. The idea of never eating anything ever again was really scary for me. And also, like, you don't know how surrounded by food you are until you can't eat it. I mean, it's on almost every TV show, every billboard, every magazine. So many social events are around food, like, let's go out for tea, let's go for lunch, let's go for coffee. Food is everywhere. And if I'm honest, it was torture for quite a long time. Because when I did have the milk feeds, they didn't, really stop the hunger for me. And I think because they made me so ill, and I wouldn't have all of the bottle that they'd give me, I was just crying out for food and nutrition. I didn't receive any speech and language therapy because, due to my condition being a progressive muscle weakening disease, I think the general consensus from the medics were, well, she's got a peg, a swallow's gone, kind of is what it is. But I really, pushed to be able to try and eat, and I didn't have an unsafe swallow. So an unsafe swallow is where you either aspirate or you choke every time, so it's not safe for you to try and eat anything. And because I didn't have an unsafe swallow, I still tried to eat, even when I couldn't. So I'd try little mouthfuls of yogurt, mashed potato, really pureed foods, just to try and keep it working, even though it wasn't, but you know what I mean? Just not let it completely go. But it really affected my mental health when I was trying to eat again. It just became a really big thing for me, because not only did food give me stomach pains and make me feel unwell, but now, it would feel like it would get stuck in my throat all the time, and I'd really lost my confidence with it, to be honest. And so my mum used to have to sit with me and, essentially try and motivate me, to be honest. to take mouthfuls, and she'd set little goals, like, if you can get to 5 mouthfuls of this, then, that's it for now, and that's enough. And so every day when I was in hospital, because I was in hospital for a long time at this point, probably like 5 or 6 months, when I was struggling with my swallow and nutrition. And so every day we'd try and pick things that would excite me, and, we'd give it a go. And honestly, it was a really slow process, both physically and mentally. I'd say physically, it probably took me about 2.5, 3 years to build up a decent enough swallow that it was relatively comfortable. I mean, even now, like, if I'm really fatigued and tired, like, I feel it. And I don't eat really chewy foods, like, I don't eat steak, I don't eat nuts, I don't eat things that are really, like, gritty, because it's uncomfortable for me. But it took me quite a while to feel even comfortable, and like I wanted to swallow, and it wasn't a chore. But mentally, it took a lot longer. I remember I used to dread having to go out for tea, because I'd get so distracted. Like, I'd try and eat, and then someone would come and talk to me, or people would kind of stare at me, like my mum and dad, because they'd be like, "Oh, she's eating, that's great," and I'd be like, "Oh, don't watch me though." But it just really rocked my confidence, and I didn't feel comfortable eating out with people. I much preferred eating on my own, where I could just take my time, and if it didn't work, that was fine. There was no pressure. If I'm honest, I think dating Carl really helped bring on that confidence a lot quicker, because by the time I met Carl, I was able to eat a lot more, and I'd started to get comfortable going out for tea again, but only really with my family, not really with friends. And obviously, when you go on dates with people, you tend to go and have some food. And I remember going on, I think it was our 4th date, I'd managed to put the first 3 off, and food not be related, so that was great. But by the 4th one, I was like, oh no, like, I can't dodge it again. So we went, and I think I just picked at some chips. I mean, I didn't really eat them. I think I got a takeaway on the way home. That was what I used to do a lot. At that point, if I'd go out with friends, I'd kind of push food around my plate, and then on the way home, I'd just get a takeaway, or I'd come home and make some super noodles, because that was just my comfortable way, and it worked. But then when me and Carl started spending more time together, I couldn't really avoid food. I was hungry. And so I just started off with things that were comfortable. We ate quite a lot of scrambled egg on toast for breakfast a lot, and there was a lot of mashed potato for dinners with different things. But I think as time went on, and the more we spent together, it just subconsciously, I didn't realise, but it was actually helping me get a lot more comfortable with eating. So I do have to give him credit there, credit by credit's due. But by the time I got to about 17, and by this point I'd been malnourished countless times. The milk feeds and just any of the peg feeds weren't working. I couldn't drink them because it made me feel too ill. So, as a last resort, TPN, which is known as parental nutrition, was suggested to me. It had been talked about a little bit before then, and if I'm honest, it was something I really didn't want. It didn't sound nice having, PICC lines or central lines fitted, as someone who has really bad access, and spent the past probably 10 years being forced for cannulas and having them blow and just be so agonising for me. I was terrified of having a PICC line or anything like that. But I didn't really have a choice. I mean, that was the only thing that was going to keep me alive, essentially. So I started it while I was in the hospital, and I was on it 7 days a week for 18 hours, which was just, it was a lot. It really was a lot. I didn't like the feeling of being hooked up. I think it's very restrictive. As someone who's a bit of a control freak like me, I didn't like it. But I'd say I did really start to feel better quite quickly. For years, I've been so under nutrition that I was always so tired, and I think I was just surviving day to day. Whereas for the first time, I was actually getting enough. I was getting enough calories, I was getting enough nutrients, and I'd say pretty quickly I started to react to it, which was great. The thing with TPN is it's a big bag. So if you think of like an IV drip, it's usually about a litre, maybe a bit more. Everybody's bag is a bit different. Some people have high volumes, some people have lower volumes, but mine is 1.2 litres, and it's got everything in it that you need in a day, nutrition wise, and you infuse it through a central line, and that's how you get your nutrition, essentially. It's quite a difficult regime for people because there's a lot of fat in it, there's a lot of glucose in it. That is something that I really struggle with because my sugar levels spike and drop quite rapidly. And so that is something that I've struggled with. I'd say in the evenings, I can't lie, I don't feel great on it. It wakes me up quite a lot through the night. It's obviously such a high volume of fluid, so it aggravates my bladder, so I'm up and down to the toilet every few hours. I get quite hot and clammy because of the glucose and the fat, and I feel quite sick and get a lot of tummy pain from it. So it's been really difficult for me. I think it's been quite a lonely journey with my nutrition. I don't, I've got really lovely and amazing friends and an amazing partner and amazing family, but I've often just felt like nobody quite gets it. I've spent most of my life now struggling to sustain myself with nutrition, and having issues with eating, then having issues with my stomach, and all that's ever been focused on has been my weight. And I'd put so much effort in, sacrifice a lot to stay hooked up and force feeds in, and then it still wouldn't work. And I think mentally that was quite difficult in my younger years. And I've met a few people on TPN that think it's really great and are able to tolerate it, but I often struggle to tolerate it. I mean, at the moment I have 4 nights a week, which is enough for me at the moment because I just can't tolerate anymore. I mean, that's 4 days a week that, I have stomach pain, I feel sick, my sugar levels are all over the place. It's difficult to function like that, but I also know that that's the only thing that allows me to live and be well and stay out of hospital. So I think trying to rationalise and process that is difficult, because when you're hooked up to something and it's infusing and you feel so unwell on it, your natural instinct is to take it off, is to stop it. But if I've only had half the bag, I know, like, I've still got another 5 or 6 hours to go. And it's really difficult mentally to try and roll over and go back to sleep, or, just distract yourself for another few hours while you feel so unwell. And the only thing that's going to stop it is you stopping that infusion. And I think that has been quite a battle, especially even just from like a body image perspective. I am pretty self-conscious about my weight. I mean, I'm a very confident girl, and I'm very comfortable in my own skin, but I'd say the one thing that is a bit of a thorn in my side is my weight, because, I'm well aware of how slim I am, but I've tried for many years to kind of just accept that, because I really can't try any harder than I am. I give it my all with my nutrition. I'm committed, but there's only so much you can do. And I think often it's been a bit of a battle in my mind between knowing that the only thing that's gonna put that weight on and keep me well is the thing that's gonna make me feel so debilitatingly unwell. But on the flip side, the TPN is also the only thing that's really helped me stay like well from a nutrition perspective. I mean, when I was younger, before I went on the TPN, I was just always lacking with energy, and I just always felt so unwell and undernourished and sick all the time. And, I don't feel like that anymore. I'm able to work, I'm able to have a social life, I'm able to do physio, I'm able to go on holiday. Like, the TPN enables me to live. I have a lot of respect for that, and I'm very thankful and appreciative of that. So it is a bit of a love-hate relationship, but I respect it, and I know that I need it. And I meet so many people who have it that, are wonderful and tolerate it. So I don't want to make this sound really negative. That's not at all the purpose of this video. It's more me trying to help other people that might feel alone on this journey like I have, that there are other people out there that struggle with it, and that's okay. You're not on your own. It is difficult, but you're doing the right thing in keeping going, and you have to just find what works for you. I think now I'm definitely at a better place. I think I found a regime that works for me. I mean, recently I'm feeling a lot better. I'm feeling a lot more like I'm able to tolerate it a bit more if I infuse it slower. But I think it's just taking it each day by day, really. From an eating perspective, I'm able to enjoy my food now. I love going out for tea. I never thought I'd say that, but absolutely love it. That's my favourite thing to do. And I think now I really appreciate being able to eat. Like, I always joke with Carl and my friends that, I'm the snack queen, because I've always got crisps and I've always got loads of stuff in the cupboards. But I think that's because I spent so long not being able to eat anything that now I'm just like, just give me everything. Like, I can't stop. But honestly, I did this video because I really wanted to try and help explain my experiences and help let everybody know what TPN is. And also, I imagine that there's other people that have been on a similar journey, and I think it's just nice to hear that you're not on your own and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and it does get better. I mean, when I was 14, if you'd have told me that I'd be eating food and tolerating it and going out for tea and going on date nights and doing all this, I'd have honestly thought you're crazy. But I got there in the end, and I think it really is the old saying of just taking it each day as it comes. That's all you can do. And yeah, so that's my little nutrition journey. I hope you found it interesting. As I say, I'm going to attach a little tutorial of how I do my TPN, just because I've had a lot of people that want to see how I connect and disconnect, and so I thought, why not show you my little routine? And yeah, that is everything for this episode. It's a little short but sweet, but I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed filming it, and I hope you keep an eye out for the next one. Thank you for listening. Bye bye. Okay, you can start now.